The summons arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under my apartment door while I was working the morning shift at Rosie's diner. My neighbor Mrs. Chen was watching Emma, my 18-month-old daughter, like she did every weekday. When I got home at 2 p.m., exhausted from the breakfast rush, the official-looking envelope was waiting like a coiled snake. Petition for emergency custody. My former in-laws, Richard and Gloria Pemberton, were suing for custody of Emma. Their grounds? I was an unfit mother who couldn't provide a suitable environment for their granddaughter. I sank onto my second-hand couch, Emma babbling happily in her high chair, and read through legal terms that made my minimum wage heart race: financial instability, inappropriate childcare arrangements, career limitations, unsafe living conditions. 6 months. That's how long my husband James had been gone. 6 months since a drunk driver took him from us, leaving me a 25-year-old widow with a baby and a mountain of medical bills that his parents refused to help with. "We'll take Emma," Gloria had said at the funeral, not even looking at me. "You obviously can't manage." I'd thought it was grief talking. I should have known better. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. 3 weeks to somehow prove I deserved to keep my own daughter. I couldn't afford a lawyer, could barely afford rent and formula, but I'd figure it out. I had to. "Don't you worry, baby girl," I whispered to Emma, kissing her chubby cheeks. "Mama's not letting you go anywhere." The morning of the hearing, I put on my only court-appropriate outfit, a black skirt suit I'd bought at Goodwill for James's funeral. Emma wore her prettiest dress, the yellow one with daisies that James had bought before he died. The courthouse steps seemed impossibly tall. Inside, the Pembertons waited with their lawyer, a shark in a $3,000 suit. Gloria's lips pursed when she saw me. "That's the suit you wore to my son's funeral," she hissed. "Couldn't even buy something appropriate for court." "Good morning to you too, Gloria," I managed. Richard didn't acknowledge me at all. To him, I'd ceased existing the moment they learned their Harvard-educated son had married a waitress. They'd boycotted our wedding, ignored Emma's birth announcement, and only acknowledged their granddaughter after James died, when they realized she was their only link to him. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Samuel Morrison." I stood on shaking legs, then froze. Judge Morrison, Sam, my 6 a.m. regular who ordered black coffee and wheat toast, no butter, who always left a $5 tip on a $3 order, who knew my name and asked about Emma every morning. His eyes found mine across the courtroom, and he smiled, that same warm smile I served with his coffee. "Good morning, everyone, please be seated." Then, looking directly at me, "Hello, Maria. I see you're having a much harder morning than usual." The Pemberton's lawyer, Mr. Ashford, stood so fast his chair scraped. "Your Honor, do you know the defendant? Ms. Rodriguez?" "Yes, I do. She serves me coffee every morning at Rosie's diner, has for the past 2 years. Is that a problem, counselor? We request you recuse yourself due to bias." "Denied." Judge Morrison's voice was calm but firm. "Knowing someone professionally doesn't constitute bias, unless you're suggesting that everyone who's ever bought coffee is unfit to judge character." "No, Your Honor." "Good, then let's proceed. I've reviewed the petition. Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, you're seeking emergency custody of Emma Rodriguez based on claims that her mother is unfit. Please present your case." Mr. Ashford stood, straightening his tie. "Your Honor, Ms. Rodriguez is a single mother working as a waitress. She makes minimum wage plus tips, hardly enough to provide for a child. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in a questionable neighborhood. She leaves the baby with an elderly neighbor while she works. The child deserves better." "I see." Judge Morrison nodded. "And what do the Pembertons offer?" "A 7-bedroom home in Westfield, private schools, a full-time nanny, every advantage their granddaughter deserves as James Pemberton's heir." "Interesting." The judge turned to me. "Ms. Rodriguez, do you have representation?" "No, Your Honor, I couldn't afford." "That's quite all right. Tell me about your arrangements for Emma." I stood, my voice shaking at first, then growing stronger. "I work 5 days a week, 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mrs. Chen watches Emma. She's not just my neighbor, she's a retired pediatric nurse who raised 4 children. She charges me half what any daycare would because she loves Emma." "And your financial situation?" "I make ends meet. We have food, shelter, healthcare through the restaurant." "No, I can't buy her designer clothes or fancy toys, but she's loved, Your Honor. She's happy." Gloria scoffed loudly. Judge Morrison's eyes sharpened. "Mrs. Pemberton, do you have something to add?" "That girl trapped our son," Gloria burst out. "Got pregnant to force him to marry her. Now she's keeping our granddaughter in poverty out of spite." "I loved James," I said quietly. "We loved each other." "Love?" Richard finally spoke. "You destroyed his future. He was supposed to join my firm, marry someone suitable. Instead, he was working construction to support you. He was happy. I insisted. He chose. Order. Judge Morrison interrupted gently. I have some questions for the petitioners. Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, when did you last see your granddaughter before filing this petition? Silence. Mr. Ashford, my clients have been estranged from Ms. Rodriguez. I see. So when exactly did you observe these unsafe living conditions? More silence. Let me be more specific. Have you ever been to Ms. Rodriguez's apartment? No, Gloria admitted reluctantly. Have you met Mrs. Chen? No. Have you, in fact, had any contact with your granddaughter since your son's funeral 6 months ago? She kept Emma from us, Gloria exploded. I pulled out my phone. Your Honor, may I? At his nod, I scrolled through messages. Text to Gloria. 2 weeks after the funeral, Emma took her first steps today. Would you like to visit? No response. Email 3 months ago. Emma's first birthday is next week. You're welcome to come. No response. Voicemail last month. Emma said Gamma today. I think she'd love to meet you. No response. You were probably coaching her to call you Mama. Gloria sneered. We know your type. My type? I felt my spine straighten. What type is that? Gloria? Your Honor, Mr. Ashford intervened. My clients are prepared to offer Ms. Rodriguez generous visitation. Visitation? Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. With her own daughter? How magnanimous. Tell me, counselor, what makes a parent unfit? Well, financial instability, inadequate housing. Is poverty a crime, Mr. Ashford? No, but, is working an honest job to support your child neglect? Of course not, but, then what, exactly, makes Ms. Rodriguez unfit? Because from where I sit, I see a young widow working hard to provide for her daughter. I see a mother who sought appropriate childcare. I see someone who repeatedly tried to include the grandparents in the child's life, only to be ignored until they decided they wanted the child without the mother. He turned to me. Maria, tell me about yesterday morning. I blinked, confused. Yesterday? Yes. You served me coffee at 6:07 a.m. You looked tired. Tell me why. Emma was teething. She kept us both up most of the night, and yet you were at work, on time, pleasant and professional as always. What did you talk about while pouring my coffee? I smiled slightly. You asked about Emma. I showed you a picture of her with her new toy, a second-hand piano she loves to bang on. And what did you tell me about your plans? That I'm saving for community college. I want to become a paralegal. Mrs. Chen will watch Emma during evening classes. Judge Morrison nodded. I've been watching you for 2 years. Maria, every morning, no matter how tired, how stressed, how grief-stricken after your husband's death, you show up, you work, you smile, you ask about everyone else's problems while managing your own. He looked at the Pembertons. You want to know what makes a fit parent? It's not money or mansions or private schools. It's showing up. It's sacrifice. It's love put into action every single day. But Your Honor, Mr. Ashford tried again. The advantages, Mr. Pemberton. Judge Morrison interrupted. You're a successful businessman. Tell me, what's more valuable, an inheritance given or a work ethic earned? Richard shifted uncomfortably. I don't see. What values did your son learn from Ms. Rodriguez that made him choose construction work over your firm? What did he see in her that made him brave enough to follow his heart instead of your plan? James was confused. Gloria insisted. She manipulated. I have a letter here. Judge Morrison pulled out a document, filed with the court by someone who knew James well. May I read it? At their lawyer's nod, he began. To whom it may concern, James Pemberton was my best friend from college through his death. I watched him transform from a miserable law student into a joyful husband and father. Maria didn't trap him, she freed him. He loved building things with his hands. He loved their tiny apartment because it was theirs. He loved their life because it was real. His parents never accepted that. Now they want to steal what they couldn't control. Don't let them. Kevin Chen, no relation to the babysitter. The Pembertons were pale now, but Judge Morrison wasn't finished. One more question for you, Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton. What does Emma call her stuffed elephant? They looked at each other blankly. Ms. Rodriguez? Mr. Peanuts, I said immediately, because James bought it from a street vendor who was selling peanuts too. She won't sleep without him. What's her favorite food? Again, blank stares from the Pembertons. Mashed sweet potatoes, I answered, but only if I make airplane noises. When did she start walking? Silence. 10 months, 3 days. She walked to James's picture on the mantel. Judge Morrison leaned back. I've heard enough, Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton. You don't know your granddaughter. You know she exists. You know she's your last link to your son, but you don't know her. You see her as a possession to be acquired, not a child to be loved. That's not, Gloria started. You had 6 months to be grandparents. Instead, you waited until you thought you could eliminate her mother and take her. That's not love, that's control, he continued. Ms. Rodriguez, you've shown that despite limited financial resources, you provide Emma with stability, love, and appropriate care. Being a waitress doesn't make you unfit. Being widowed doesn't make you incapable. Being poor doesn't make you unworthy. Your Honor, Mr. Ashford made one last attempt. Surely some arrangement. Oh, I agree, which is why I'm ordering the following. Petition for emergency custody is denied. Ms. Rodriguez retains full custody of Emma Rodriguez. However, grandparents can be a valuable part of a child's life. If the Pembertons wish to develop a relationship with Emma, they may have supervised visitation every other Saturday, 2 to 5 p.m., at Ms. Rodriguez's discretion. Supervised? Richard sputtered. By Ms. Rodriguez, you've shown you don't respect her as Emma's mother. Until you do, you don't get unsupervised access to Emma. Furthermore, if you wish to contribute to Emma's future, you may establish a college fund in her name, accessible only when she turns 18, but any financial support does not grant you additional rights or influence over her upbringing. Gloria was crying now, angry, bitter tears. You can't do this. I can and I have. Ms. Rodriguez, do you have any questions? No, Your Honor, thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself for being the mother Emma needs. Court is adjourned. As everyone filed out, Judge Morrison caught my eye. Maria? Same time tomorrow? Black coffee, wheat toast, no butter, I confirmed, holding Emma close. And pictures of Emma, I hope. My wife loves hearing about her milestones. Outside the courthouse, the Pembertons and their lawyer huddled in defeat. Gloria approached me one last time. This isn't over, she hissed. Yes, it is, I said firmly, but it doesn't have to be. I've never wanted to keep Emma from you. I want her to know her grandparents, but as her grandparents, not as her owners. When you're ready for that, you have my number. 6 months later, they called. It started slowly, awkward Saturday visits where Gloria learned to hold Emma properly and Richard discovered his granddaughter's infectious giggle. They watched me make those airplane noises with sweet potatoes. They learned about Mr. Peanuts and teething and how Emma liked to dance to the oldie station. Gradually, they began to see what James had seen, not a gold digger or a trap, but a young woman doing her best, a mother who'd choose love over money every time. The college fund they established grew quietly in the background, but more importantly, Emma grew up knowing her grandparents, flawed, human, but trying. And every morning at 6:07 a.m., Judge Morrison got his black coffee and wheat toast with a side of Emma stories, because sometimes the best justice isn't about law books and precedents. Sometimes it's about recognizing that a waitress who shows up every day, loves fiercely, and dreams of paralegal classes is exactly the kind of mother every child deserves. You know, Judge Morrison told me years later when Emma started kindergarten, that morning in court, I asked about the elephant's name because I already knew the answer. You'd told me the week before, complete with a picture of Emma hugging Mr. Peanuts. Why ask then? Because anyone can claim to love a child, but only a real parent knows their stuffed elephant's name and the story behind it. Money can't buy that kind of love, Maria. It never could. He was right. It couldn't. But love, real love, the showing up everyday kind, that could buy everything that mattered. Even justice.